This guy was as cold and calculated as they come. Maybe we weren't going to get it solved.
It was like the epitome of innocence that had been preyed upon.
This is a case that has no evidence. We didn't have DNA. We didn't have fingerprints.
Step inside the court of law with the new true crime podcast, American Justice.
We realized we have 4 men who answered the same ad for a job on a farm.
My brother Ralph went to interview and he was never seen again.
A podcast that explores impactful crimes and reveals how our justice system works.
You have to consider that there are more possibilities than one.
And sometimes how it doesn't.
We have to find whoever this monster is.
Go in depth into chilling cases and their conclusions in this new true crime series.
You just have a pit in your stomach thinking, how many people are we going to find?
New episodes of American Justice are available every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the prosecutors. Today on The Prosecutors, with Halloween approaching, places so creepy they can only be described as nightmare fuel. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Prosecutors. I'm Brett, and I'm joined, as always, by my spooky co-host, Alice.
Hi, Brett.
Hi, Alice.
I think I'm the least Scoopy and spooky person ever because, you had to pick these spooky places. Like, I like to pretend we just live in Mary Poppins Land all day and that none of these creepy places exist. Why do you have to bring this up? Why? This is all I'm going to think about tonight.
I just do, because I have to give the people what they want.
Guys, you should, if you like spooky things, which the 80% of you listening probably do, you're going to love this episode. I, for one, am terrified. I'll never go visit any of these places. I'm pretty sure Brett took honeymoons on these places, for all I know.
Came pretty close on one of them, but I do want to say, for those of you who are following along our sort of movie watching experience, I've thought about this a lot because it's tough to pick a spooky place movie, but I'm going to go with Grave Encounters. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's about a paranormal investigation team going to a haunted asylum. And one of the places we're going to talk about here in a minute was formerly an asylum, maybe. It depends on who you ask. So, Grave Encounters, great movie, very good found footage film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. We'll be watching it on Friday, so you can watch it with us. And yes, Alice, this is probably going to be our least true crime Halloween episode. Our actual Halloween episode is a true crime episode. So this is our sort of indulgence. This is my indulgence.
This is like the National Geographic of creepy places that Brett wants to visit. This is his bucket list of, if you want to find Brett, he's probably at one of these places. So this is a treasure map of where Brett's going to be for the next couple of weeks.
And I do have a story about one of them. So there you go.
And I will not be there.
Well, and I will say this. These are all places that we're going to talk about today. Number one, we're going on an international journey today. Those of you who think we spend too much time in the United States, not going to be in the United States at all today. We're going around the world. And these are all places that you can technically visit. I mean, 2 of them you can visit for sure. One of them, you got to kind of break the law to do it, but hey, it's a foreign country. You can pay people in foreign countries to let you do things right. That's the way it works. So you can get there. You just might go to prison. So
that's a lot of lead up. Let's talk about these creepy places because I'm going to talk about it. this is as much as I'm going to read about it. I don't even want to Google photos of them because the image from the words is enough for me. So let's start in Mexico. In the 1950s, Julian Santana Barrera left his family and made a home for himself on a small island. By the way, we always talk about people starting a new life on an island. This is literally what he did, except he's not a missing person. He just chose to pick an island in Xochimilco, Mexico. This is a tiny little island. It's only 1 acre, and it consisted of 3 huts. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Xochimilco was that Barrera was the island's sole resident, and he spent his days growing vegetables, which he would sell in neighboring Barrio de la Asunción.
Your pronunciation. See, Alice was telling me she's doing all these A&E podcasts now, right? And unlike us, they're professionals, so they require her to actually pronounce the things correctly. And she's just gotten so good at it. I'm just so impressed.
It's because it's Spanish, and I did grow up in Texas. If I can't pronounce things in Spanish, like, can I even call myself a Texan? Do I know what they mean? No, but thank you very much. I do listen to, who is our sponsor?
Huggies?
No.
We got you, baby.
Huggies did not teach me Spanish. All to say is, you Texans know what I'm talking about. You Texans know what I'm talking about. If you're gonna hang around Texas for a while, you'll pick up some, rolls R's. Anyways, This guy, I mean, this sounds like someone's dream. It's not mine. I don't want to live on an island by myself, but it is kind of pastoral. He farms all day. How wonderful. And he does see people. He goes to the neighboring island to sell his vegetables. But at some point, which I wonder if it was something he was prone to begin with, or if maybe the island brought it out in him, Barrera began to suffer from some sort of rumored mental illness and began preaching the Bible around town when he visited to sell his vegetables. He was eventually expelled from that island. They were like, "Your vegetables are delicious. You are strange. Don't come back." And he had to retreat to his island, where he would spend the rest of his days. You look like you want to live on this island, so please embellish.
I just think this sounds amazing. Like, I would like to live on an island and just sort of like do my own thing. I mean, I can see how being isolated all the time might lead you to having some mental illness. This is kind of like, those of you who've seen The Shining, right? I mean, The Shining is a supernatural movie, but you can watch it straight. It's just a couple people stuck in the mountains surrounded by snow. They kind of go crazy and crazy things happen. So I can see how this would happen. I feel for this guy.
Yeah, 1 acre is not a lot, especially when you're surrounded by water. So there's probably not a lot to see, not a lot to do. But according to legend, this one day is different than the others, and it would change the course of Xochimilco. One day, a little girl's body washed up ashore on Barrera's Island. She'd been swimming nearby when she got swept up in the current and sadly drowned. After this incident, though, strange things began happening on the island. Barrera began seeing ghosts and hearing the voice of this little girl call out to him. And it wasn't just voices, but there were physical manifestations of this perhaps spiritual realm that had taken a hold of his island. His crops began to die, and nothing he did would bring them back. Barrera came to the conclusion that the little girl's spirit was the cause of all his troubles. So when a doll washed ashore not long after, he hung this doll from a tree in an attempt to appease this little girl's spirit.
See how Alice attacked me in the outline? I mean, that was like a subtle jab, but she really just stuck the knife like right in between the ribs on that one. But that's okay. Miss Fancy Pants with her great pronunciation. And by the way, if you want to be able to pronounce words just like Alice, go to babbel.com/prosecutors, and you too will be able to speak Spanish. So
there you go.
So you had this tragedy and this terrible thing happens, and you can sort of imagine if you have someone who already is having some mental illness problems, and then you have a tragedy like this, and then bad things start to happen, you can see where this would lead to some interesting events. And so he takes this doll and he hangs it up, and that's creepy, guys. If I ever, was floating down the river and I showed up on an island and there was a doll hanging from the tree, I'm going to take that as a sign I should leave. But the thing is, one doll, not enough. He did not stop there. According to local legend, the hauntings actually became worse. And Barrera, he would hear voices on the island. In particular, the voice of the young girl, the girl who had drowned, whispering, "I want my doll." And he would hear footsteps in the dead of night. And this, as you can imagine, drove him crazy. So for the next 50 years, he would collect dolls and hang them around the island in a never-ending attempt to keep the girl's spirit happy. He also placed them inside his cabin, often dressing them up in various outfits and accessories. This is really creepy.
This is super creepy. By the way, there are obviously pictures of this. If you want to have nightmares tonight, go look at them because, old decrepit dolls and then like further nailed to trees and hanging from trees. You can imagine how scary that is.
So some of these dolls he would find washed ashore, or he would find them in the garbage, or he would find them on his various trips into town. People started giving him dolls, and he always took them, whatever condition they were in. He never fixed them up. And so he took them as they were, and he hung them up, and oftentimes, as Alice said, eventually they got this way no matter what. But a lot of times they would have missing eyes, torn limbs, their hair would be torn out. Any number of horrific things could be done to these dolls, but when he got them, he's hanging them up in the trees. And they obviously would get a little bit worse over the years. But for these 50 years, he continued to add to the island to the point where you got this pretty small place, right? I mean, it's not big, but it is covered up in dolls. And in fact, over the course of his lifetime, Barrera collected more than 1,000 dolls, which he proudly displayed all over the island. The place became known as La Isla de las Muñecas, or the Island of the Dolls.
1,000 dolls for a hermit?
A lot of dolls.
That's a lot of dolls. Like, you got to be on a hunt for dolls.
And an acre.
It's not that much, Those of you who do math. That's a lot of dolls in a small concentration of places. Well, even though you may think this is like the 1960s or a long time ago, no, he lived until 2001, so into the 21st century. And at the age of 86, Barrera died of a heart attack in the very spot the little girl's body washed ashore so many years prior. I mean, sadly, I think his whole life is wrapped up in this, whether it was mental illness or something spiritual. It's said that her spirit dragged him into the water to join her. And
you would think she would be,
thankful?
Yeah, exactly. Give a little gratitude. I mean, the guy got you 1,000 dolls. That should be worth something.
Maybe she's like, why'd you give me all these creepy dolls?
That's a good point.
I want a nice doll.
So yeah, I just wanted like one nice doll, not like the dolls with no eyes and no legs. I mean,
exactly. Well, there is a small grave on the island for Barrera, which fittingly features a doll's head on a stake, as if, the 1,000 dolls on the island weren't creepy enough. So his grave is marked with a doll head and also a small statue of Jesus on the cross. So I guess that is fitting. He was preaching the Bible to the townspeople. So you may be wondering what became of this 1,000 Muñeca island. And to this day, the island remains with Barrera's family. His great-nephew, Rogelio Sanchez Santana, serves as the island's caretaker. I don't know what he's taking care of because it's not like the dolls really are taken care of, but he's the caretaker. Although he doesn't live there, so I don't think I'd live there either. And despite Barrera's death, all the dolls are still there. And they're continuing to decay, and many of them are beheaded. Truly creepy. A lot of them no longer look like dolls. They look like people to me, and it's very scary. So everywhere you look, you see literally 1,000 dirty dolls hanging from trees, nailed to buildings, nailed to really anything on the island, strung along clotheslines. It is the perfect scene for a horror movie, except it's real life. And because people like Brett exist, I guess they like this place, and the site has become a very popular tourist attraction. And you can actually take a ferry to the island. It's not cheap to go to this Muñeca Island of Horror. It costs $75 just to tour the island and see Barrera's dolls. I guess these dolls take a lot of money to upkeep, which is why it's so expensive to go there. But many will even leave a doll of their own in tribute to the little girl who died there and the man who dedicated his life to building the macabre attraction.
And I'm not going to say that I wouldn't want to go there because that would not be true. I don't know that it would necessarily be the first place on my list of places that I would like to visit in Mexico. I don't know, Alice, what your thoughts are.
Nope. I will go for
On that.
delicious food, but not to see a bunch of dead dolls. I guess the dolls were never alive. That's what I'm going with.
Well, they are dead though. I mean, that's a good. And the thing is, if you're out there thinking this can't be real, like they made this up, this is like a horror movie or something. Like, no, you can go there, check it out, see what you think. And look, as we said, there are many stories about how the dolls came to be, and they all involve this little girl washing ashore and wanting to appease her spirit. All but a couple. There are some variations on this story. There are some stories that actually say that her body washed ashore with her doll, and that was the first doll he hung up. Others say that the girl washed ashore years before Barrera even lived there, but he could hear her spirit calling out for the doll. And then some people say there was no girl. No girl washed up, no doll, nothing like that. This was just a continuation of this mental break that Barrera was suffering from, and it sort of gave him purpose in life. Like, this was something he could do to fill his days and feel like he was actually accomplishing something. Now, look, I don't know what the answer is to that question. You guys can go check it out if you want to. It's a real place, and it only costs you $75 to go, which I think is cheap at twice the price. I don't know what Alice is talking about. I do want to give a shout out to Jeremy Bates, who's an author that I used to know back in my horror days. He writes a series of books called The World's Scariest Places, and he actually wrote a book about the Island of the Dolls, titled, fittingly, The Island of the Dolls. So check that one out. He also did a great one on Dyatlov's Pass. And if you're a fan of the radioactive Yeti theory, you might enjoy that one as well. So check that out too. Okay, Alice. Well, that's
not
just
the only
one.
scary place. I was gonna say. You guys
That's
asked
just
if any
one.
crimes happen. Yeah, it's a crime against me to have to learn about all these places because this is terrifying. I do love visiting Mexico. It has some beautiful places and beautiful islands, but I will myself not be going there. So let's venture maybe a little further down south to Colombia, because I don't know if you've actually been to Colombia, Brett, but
I have not.
I have family who live in Bogota, and it is a definite place with a lot of like witchcraft and spiritual elements, and it scares me if you can't tell. So let's talk about one of these places. Hotel del Salto, which is located 18 miles southwest of Bogota and was built in 1923 by architect Carlos Arturo Tapias. Although it was originally intended to be his home, really beautiful, but pretty great home, terrible to have to upkeep. But he decided that it was so grand he wasn't going to keep it to himself. He was going to open it up as a luxury hotel catering to wealthy Colombians and visitors. And the hotel was perched, as if in a movie, right up against a cliffside, featuring stunning views of the Salto de Tequendama waterfall. The ornate architecture and incredible landscape was intended to provide a place for wealthy patrons to indulge and gather. But we wouldn't be talking about this place if it were just a place for the rich and famous. This hotel quickly developed a more sinister reputation. Not long after the structure was built, rumors started swirling that the place was haunted. Long before the hotel existed, you see, Spanish colonizers had invaded the land on which it stood and subjected the native Muisca people to rape, murder, and slavery. And so this land was cursed. Unwilling to accept such a fate, many of the Muisca people actually jumped from the falls to their death instead of be subjected to this terror. And they believe Salto del Tequendama had magical powers, and by jumping over the falls, they would be transformed into eagles and fly away rather than be colonized, essentially. For centuries after, the Muisca people were said to haunt the land. Guests at the hotel would see ghosts in and around the place, and some even reported hearing voices talking in a strange language, perhaps the Muisca language.
Now, we said, there are beautiful islands in Mexico and wonderful places to visit, but maybe not the one with the dolls on it. That one might not be so beautiful. This place is gorgeous. I mean, this guy, he picked just an amazing spot to build this hotel. It's unfortunate that the land is cursed because when you look up pictures of this, or if you're watching this on YouTube and you're seeing pictures of it, it is perched on the side of a cliff, and behind it is this beautiful waterfall. It seems like the kind of place you would have no trouble selling a hotel. But the rumors start, and then things get even worse. For one, although it's beautiful, the history of this place, the old history is bad. Current history is not great either. People were known to commit suicide by jumping from the falls. And in fact, they would walk past the hotel to get to the falls, often resulting in hotel guests witnessing the jumps from their oversized windows. There were even stories of guests falling off the balcony into the falls after overindulging a little too much at the second floor bar. So you can see how, if you're reading the TripAdvisor review of this place, it might not be too great at this point. Seems like a beautiful place, but definitely some issues, and they continue to get worse. Then there was one guest who was even said to be murdered within the hotel. She was a beautiful young socialite staying there, and she was murdered in her room, and rumors started to spread, and guests began to say that she would haunt the halls of the hotel where she was killed, appearing in the windows of her room, seeking justice that she never received. Then, look, these stories are not great, but maybe you could overcome them. In fact, maybe some of them could even be a little bit of an attraction. But then something very real hit this hotel. In the 1930s, those of you who know history know what happened in the 1930s. The Great Depression hit, and tourism began to decline, and the hotel felt the effects of it. By the 1950s, there was an attempt to restore and expand the hotel, but it was scrapped when a hydroelectric plant, dam, and reservoir was installed upstream, which damaged the ecosystem and polluted the waters, sort of taking away the whole point of going to this place in the first place.
Well, the water at the falls became so contaminated with feces, waste, and chemicals that a pungent odor plagued the hotel. So which was the very attraction of this cliffside hotel, these beautiful falls, now was quite literally feces-filled odor coming, it's like sewage pouring out in front of the hotel. The Bogota River has suffered pollution so bad that parts of it are uninhabitable to life, and it has become one of the most badly polluted rivers in the world. While this is likely due to the hydroelectric plant, there are many who believe it's actually the result of the Muisca people cursing the land. The road leading up to the hotel has also been plagued by accidents and mudslides, lending further proof to the idea that the land may be cursed. Also, if you look at the cliffside pictures, it's probably pretty hard to get up here as well. But all to say is, those who may be attracted to this, it once was beautiful and probably smelled better, but now you have to brave potentially haunted halls, people falling off balconies into feces-infested waters. I don't know who else is going there except for Brett. But by the 1990s, you can imagine with all of these things plaguing the hotel had fallen into complete disrepair and it closed to the public. But it is still this massive, gorgeous structure. So what do you think happens? Doesn't stay empty for long. Squatters and ghost hunters frequented the abandoned hotel and reported seeing shadow people who weren't really there, hearing faint whispers in an unrecognizable language and a loud cry that permeated the halls at night. It's as if the more beautiful the structure is, the scarier it is when it becomes in disrepair.
Oh, I think that's absolutely right, Alice. That's a great analysis. And that's, one of the attractions. I used to do the little ghost hunting. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast before. I would have loved to have gone down here and done this. But, I did ghost hunting at various asylums, for instance. And you had the asylums that were the old Kirkbride style, which were from about the 1850s when the Bryce Hospital in Tuscaloosa was built through maybe the 30s or 40s was the style. And it was this just gorgeous, grand, these structures were just amazing because one of the prevailing thoughts at the time was that beauty would help calm the mind. So if you're someone who is suffering from mental illness, you're insane in the parlance of the day, and you go to this place, the fact that you're in this beautiful place, these beautiful gardens and these beautiful halls and these beautiful facades, it would help you in your recovery. And those buildings have now largely been abandoned, and they are just, in their ruin, are amazing. And you go through them, and they're so inspiring in so many different ways, and they certainly inspire there's a creepiness about something like that. I mean, I've done abandoned office buildings too. Not as creepy, right? They just don't inspire in the same way. But there's something about a gorgeous building that was so prized and beautiful in its time, and now it's in complete disrepair. I mean, it's always struck me. I actually really, urban exploration's big these days, but I just am really into that whole aesthetic. I think it is a very cool thing. So excellent observation, Alice. I agree with you 100%. And my only regret is that I couldn't get down to Bogota to visit this place before, unfortunately, somebody had to decide to turn it into something.
I was going to say, you can go visit today. I don't know that it's any less creepy, but in 2011, the hotel was purchased by the Ecological Farm Foundation of Porvenir, and it was transformed into a museum in 2016. I'm not like, what is the museum of? Like, it was just a hotel, and this is all legend, but it celebrates the area's history and the environment. Still pretty polluted over there, but it operates today, meaning you all can go. I don't think you can stay there, but you can go there. And I'll take a flip side in case this is your view on creepy places and haunted places. We are a true crime podcast. I know today may leave you wondering, but I find that there is enough scary things in the world that are tangible that I don't need to go hunt for it, which is why I don't go hunting for ghosts or creepy places. But those of you who can't get enough of the downfall of man in our everyday life and news, there's more.
So here's the thing, Alice. One day I'm going to trick you into doing some sort of ghost hunt. The way the movie watching group tricked you into watching a horror movie that time. Told you it was a cooking show.
I told you it was a cooking show.
I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to be like, hey, we're going to do a show with this. It's just down this. I know it looks weird. It's, looks creepy and abandoned, but in fact, it's an event center. Let's head that way.
You would make so much money selling tickets to people seeing my response to it.
I know where we could do it.
I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying, you know how like Ellen DeGeneres' shtick was like scaring all of her guests? That would be me. Like you don't, it wouldn't even need to be scripted. You would make so much money because I would just nonstop scream. Ask me if I've ever been in a haunted house. Never. I stand outside. I'm that weirdo who's like, see you on the other side, y'all.
What are you talking about, Alice? You live in a...
Hey, you stop it. We are too close to Halloween. I know it's only September now, but you stop it because I will leave this house.
Well, I just figured out where we could do this, Alice, because if you're in Birmingham, Alabama, there's the old Sloss furnaces, which are abandoned and are haunted, and they've turned into an event space. So we could have a podcast / ghost hunting night at Sloss Furnaces. We'll have to get with people in Birmingham to get that together. It'll be amazing. We'll enjoy
I think the event is that I'll have a heart attack and die on the spot. Here's something I'm really looking forward to as the weather turns cooler. Football games, pumpkin spice lattes, and slipping into a cozy sweater from Quince. Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And it's not just that.
all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. That includes beautiful leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim, and so much more. You might be thinking, how do they do that? Well, it's by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, which passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that are safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And of course, premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. I'm not kidding, guys. I have a text chain with my girlfriends. We're all working professionals, and we love Quince's items, from their washable silk to their cozy sweaters. It really is some of the best quality you can have. I've worn it to court, I've worn it to depositions, and I also wear it on the plane because it's that comfortable. Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/prosecutors for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/prosecutors to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/prosecutors.
Guys, we want to talk about a podcast that needs no introduction because it's one that we've appeared on several times, and we love Silver Linings Handbook. We love Jason Blair. We love the work that he does. He is one of the best interviewers in the business. He has interviewed a lot of people from both the true crime space and really across the spectrum, and he always manages to get the very best points out of them. He talks about he wants to do a podcast with conversations that inspire, and that's what he does every single episode. I hope you guys will check it out. It is amazing. We love not only appearing on it, but we love listening to it, and you will too.
Absolutely. You will get so much out of his very interesting conversations with interesting people. The areas he's focused on have included well-being, mental health, the law and criminal justice system, true crime, religion, society, culture, people who are underrepresented in the mainstream media, such as racial minorities, indigenous people, and LGBTQ people. In other words, there is something for everyone. And what we feel makes this podcast different is that it's truly not scripted. We can say that, having appeared on it before, because Jason uses the same natural curiosity you have listening in your living room or around a campfire with a new and exciting person you have just met. Jason's a former journalist who worked at the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, and other newspapers. And the podcast is one of several comebacks from a 2003 scandal that he was part of at the Times that led him to start working in mental health. And his vulnerability around this has been so refreshing that we can all learn from. So subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
So it's time for truth telling, guys. We're doing the show. We got 3 creepy places. It's an hour-long show, so, usually we got to talk for an hour. And those first 2 places, they were creepy. But in truth, we did this for this place that's coming up. Because the place that's coming up is one of the places that I have really always wanted to go. And about 10 years ago, my wife and I were in beautiful Venice, Italy. And I mean, we were so close to doing it. If I had somebody who spoke a little bit more conversational Italian than me, which is any Italian, then maybe I would have attempted to engage one of the very many boat drivers, whatever you call them, to take me out into the middle of the Venice Lagoon to visit Poveglia Island in Venice, Italy. So it's off the eastern coast of northern Italy, and a small, unassuming island, particularly if you're in the boisterous, fantastic, tourist-filled city of Venice, which is truly amazing. If you've never been there, you should go. The last time I went, I've been there twice. The first time I went in August, mistake. The second time I went in February, and there was nobody there in February. So if you want to go to Venice when there's nobody there, it's a little cold, a little rainy, but you have the whole city to yourself, February is the time to do it. But just off the coast of Venice is Poveglia Island. The island, which is actually 3 small islands, is located in the Venice Lagoon and is completely uninhabited today, which should already strike you as interesting because Venice is kind of an overpopulated place. It's literally built on islands that were constructed by the Venetians. There's not a whole lot of room to do anything, so you would think, hey, there's an island right there. We're already going everywhere by boat. Let's go build some houses over there. But they haven't done that. And why not? Because the history of this island is one of darkness, of hauntings, and of terrible things that have happened there. It has, at times over its history, served several macabre purposes. It was a military checkpoint, a mental institution, and most famously, a quarantine center and mass grave for victims of the bubonic plague. Suffice it to say, this island is no stranger to death, and those who die here tend to hang around, earning it the nickname the Island of Ghosts, which you thought the Island of Dolls was creepy. Island of Ghosts, even better. The island has a long history and has been utilized since at least the 5th century, if not earlier. And in fact, it was likely inhabited as far back as 2000 BC, but its more modern form took shape in the late 1300s when its residents were forced to leave in order to build a military outpost. An octagonal fort was built on the island to control the lagoon during the Chioggia War. And those of you who don't know, Venice now, we see it as this, it's a tourist attraction. You go there, you get the guy to take you in the boat with the pole, and he's singing the songs, and you pay a ton of money for it, and it's really touristy, and the food's not that great, and it's hot. I mean, I'm really selling it for you right now. It is beautiful, but 500 years ago, Venice was the most powerful entity in the world. It was incredibly wealthy. It had a massive fleet. Its military was able to extend its power across the Mediterranean and around the world. Some people say it's responsible for the fall of Constantinople to the Turks because the Venetians sacked it in a war before the Turks could, weakened the Eastern Roman Empire so much that it would eventually fall. Wonderful history, terrific history. A lot of popes came from Venice. Incredible place, something to check out. Now it's sort of a shadow of its former glory, but a lot of history there.
So for centuries after the island remained uninhabited, until 1576 when the Italian government found another use for it, a dumping ground for plague victims. Darn. This isn't going to go well, guys. During previous epidemics of the plague, the Italian people discovered that in the absence of any cure, the only effective control was to isolate those with the disease to minimize the risk of spreading it. It's great for those of you who don't have it yet, but it's really bad if you've been struck by the plague. So several of these islands, including Poveglia, served as both quarantine sites and what happens once you get the plague? Death, mass graves. According to an article by Doug McGowan, anyone stricken with even mild symptoms was quickly stripped away from their families and society and taken to the island. Once there, they spent up to 40 days in quarantine where they either died or rarely recovered. Once dead, the bodies were incinerated on the island to prevent the further spread of diseases. Barges of corpses were even shipped from the mainland for incineration on this island. Look, we just recently lived through a pandemic, so this feels very close in time. I can just imagine you start sniffling and someone rips you away and it's time to spend your quarantine time on an island where everyone who goes there dies. It's so bad that they're just going to burn you because they don't want more people to get sick. So this feeling a little bit close to home right now.
And here's the thing, if you didn't have it before, you were definitely going to have it once they put you on the island.
That's true.
If those mild symptoms were actually something else, and then you get shipped to the plague island, you're probably going to get the plague. And we're talking about ghosts here. And those of you, the science of haunting, if you believe in that sort of thing, there are all these theories about why places are haunted. Why are certain places haunted and other places not haunted? And one of the theories is that places of extreme emotional, physical trauma are the kind of places that leave an imprint. And there's some sort of manifestation of that for years and years later. It's kind of like if you have a supernova in the sky. It's not like there's a supernova that just goes away. It glows for centuries, right? Same type of thing. Same type of idea. And so, of course, you can already see, why would this place be haunted? It was so much suffering, so much horror, real horror happened on this island. And there's lots of talk about things. We've given you sort of the sanitized version. There's also legends about plague pits where people would be thrown into the pits to be buried because they couldn't keep the incinerations going fast enough. And sometimes they were thrown in there and they were still alive. You know, they probably weren't going to recover, but they had not died yet. You can imagine how horrific and horrifying something like that would be. So in the late 1700s, the island was serving as a checkpoint for ships, once again, to ensure that disease wouldn't spread to mainland Italy. And you can imagine, if you've ever been to Venice, how easy it would be for disease to spread in Venice. You talk about a place where you are living on top of each other and next to each other. It's a mass of people packed into this one small place. You need to prevent disease from getting in, because once it is, everybody's going to get sick. And so they've got this checkpoint set up. And once again, they find plague on 2 ships. And the plague is something that haunted people's minds for centuries after it passed. I mean, to this day, I mean, you know, my kids still do Ring Around the Rosie, right? Like, to this day, the legacy of the plague, the Black Death, is something that we still talk about. So you can imagine in the 1700s, they see this, they're going to freak out. And so once again, they transform Poveglia into a quarantine site, which it remained for 10 more years before finally shutting down. By this point, I'm just going to say this as if it's true, even though it's totally not true. By this point, thousands of bodies had been cremated on the island, and the soil was said to be 50% human ash. So in 1922, you know, because things weren't bad enough on Poveglia, the island was transformed again when a mental hospital was built on it. Rumors soon circulated that the doctor at the hospital was carrying out sick, inhumane experiments, including something that was actually medically accepted and for which someone won the Nobel Prize in Medicine, lobotomies. And we are totally going to do an episode on lobotomies because it is worth doing, on patients. Now, legend said that the same doctor jumped from the bell tower on the island to his death, either to avoid the repercussions or to escape the ghostly hauntings of the patients that he had tortured and who had returned from the grave to enact their revenge upon him. The hospital closed in 1968 and has remained vacant ever since. But the spirits lost there, both at the hospital and to the plague, reportedly still roam the island.
I just feel like so many people have died here that it can't not be haunted. Like, I'm not sure which, like, variation of hauntings are happening, but there's just way too many dead spirits here not to be haunted. And fishermen have claimed in the past to have heard screams and moans in the area, as well as the ringing of the bell in the tower, which would be unlikely as it was removed years ago. But that doesn't stop ghosts. They've also reported that the spirit of a young girl known as Little Maria, thought to be a child victim of the plague around 400 years ago, can be heard crying on the island's beach, probably saying, "Why'd you leave me here? I don't belong here." Some have reported that the ghost of a patient named Pietro, who had 2 amputated legs, can still be heard racing his wheelchair through the abandoned hospital corridors, while the ghost of a young woman, who's terrified of the doctor and his evil experiments, is also reported to haunt the location. Others who have visited have reported seeing eyes staring from under the water's surface, being watched, followed, and even scratched or pushed by spirits, and even spotting unexplained shadows on the rotting hospital walls. I can believe all that, because did you hear about the horrid history?
Yeah, Poveglia is one of those places where if anywhere in the world's haunted, it should be Poveglia, right? Enough stuff's happened there. And look, everything we've told you, there are people who dispute. They say it wasn't quite that bad. You know, yeah, it was a quarantine zone, but it wasn't as many people. I mean, people dispute it, but I mean, come on. Those people are all wrong, right? I mean, we don't believe those people. I mean, there's a reason nobody lives there. But to this day, there are still several decrepit structures remaining on Poveglia, including the hospital, which remains there. And it is a hot spot for ghost hunters. In fact, if you go on YouTube right now, you can find 1,000 videos of various ghost hunters going and exploring the remains, none of which include me, unfortunately. Now, it is technically true that visitors are strictly prohibited from entering the island. It is totally off limits, which might strike you as a little strange, because why? Why is it off limits? Well, it is nevertheless. Now, the government has tried to do something with this land because, as I said, this should be incredibly valuable property. I mean, there's so much you could do with this. If it weren't haunted, 50% human remains, you could build like a resort on there. I mean, imagine all the rich people who'd want to stay on the island, a short boat trip away.
Many
from
other
Venice.
islands in Italy, in fact, are like incredibly, sought after tourist locations.
Yeah. And in 2014, at one point, they tried to auction it, and it did sell for over $700,000, but the deal fell through, probably cursed by whatever was happening on the island. Now, today, the only residents who remain on the island are its ghostly ones, a fitting legacy for the island of the ghost. And I will tell you, if you want to go to the island, I mean, all you got to do is you go to Venice, have somebody who speaks a little bit of Italian. Anybody with a boat will take you there. They're all freaked out by it, though. And this is the thing that kind of got me, and why, at the end of the day, I couldn't really bring myself to take my beautiful future bride to this island with me. If I'd just been there with some dude, I'd have taken him, like my best friend, and we'd have gone, and we would have gone through some horrific thing, and he would have been killed, but I would have survived. I mean, that's the way it would have gone. And that's fine. That would have been fine, but I didn't want that to happen to her. So the problem is, they're all freaked out by the island too. So they'll take your money, and they'll take you there, but they won't wait on you.
Oh.
They go back home.
What happens to you then?
Well, you have to set up a return time.
What if
so
they
they'll come
don't
back
return?
And pick you up. That was the thing.
That is like a very real,
a very real possibility, right? That they just don't come back, and then you're stuck on the island in the middle of the lagoon. Now, look, this is a very well-traveled area, so you probably could flag somebody down, but you're definitely getting arrested in that circumstance. But nevertheless, what if something happened to you? Like the ghost hurt you, or you hurt yourself, and you needed to leave. Like you couldn't do it. Like you're stuck on that island. So if you go there, I mean, I can't believe nobody's made a horror movie out of this. I'm calling out to you, Hollywood. I'm giving you a multi-million-dollar idea. I don't know where Blumhouse is, but listen to me on this. Blumhouse. So just you go out there at sunrise and you make a deal with the boatman to come back. The next sunrise, you're going to stay there 24 hours, you're going to stay overnight. And now you're stuck on the island and you can't get off, right? And you don't have any cell service out there. So it's just the perfect setting for a horror movie. I can't believe nobody's made it. Somebody should. But you can go there for real. This is absolutely accessible.
You're telling people to break the law.
You
just said that you're going to get arrested, / maybe like killed by spirits before.
I'm telling them they can go if they want to. They're taking the risk.
Technically you can go anywhere. There are places you should not go. As the perhaps saner half of the podcast, if you can't hear the things that Brett's saying, it's still illegal to go, and it could be horrific. I think breaking the law is the least scary part of all of that.
Don't let the unjust laws of other countries keep you from following your dreams, okay? That's all I'm saying. But know the potential consequences. I'm just letting you know what could happen. So, there you go. Well, Alice,
you've sent me over the edge. Never coming back now.
Whatever, Alice. We're going to take you to all three of these places eventually. We're going to have we'll just do an international tour. We'll have a Venice show and a Mexico show and a Colombia show, and we'll visit all these different places. I mean, you seem very sort of down to earth. I'm sure you probably don't even believe in ghosts, right? So what is your worry? What do you got to worry about? If there are no
Me?
ghosts? Yeah.
This girl who's afraid of everything? Are you kidding? I'm absolutely afraid of them.
Okay, well, fine, whatever. I'll find somebody else. I guess I'll take my friend. The friend
I don't want to be
murdered.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I don't want to be the one that you want to outrun so that you're not the murdered one. No,
the problem is, if I took you, you would be the final girl, and so you would survive, and I would die.
Maybe.
So we can't have that.
Still not going with you because none of this feels good. But all 65 of you still here listening to this, you're rewarded. Congratulations, you've made it. I've survived this. I'm gonna have nightmares tonight for sure. Like I started with muñecas, who are terrifying, and we ended with like 50% human ash soil. I mean, that's kind of terrifying.
Plague.
The plague. At that,
Yeah.
You froze right when you said that, which was really scary too. But
Anyways,
with all that, I mean, I guess we have to like Well, okay, so Brett's officially like scared everybody. If you're not scared, I don't know. Like, congratulations, you're a very brave person, but I'm very scared. So much so that I guess I will reward everyone who's still here with a little bit of gossip. How about that? Guys, let's be honest. Typical children's vitamins are basically candy in disguise, filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk growing kids should never eat. You guys have heard about what I really care about what I feed my kids, and that includes not giving them too much sugar. That's why Haya was created, the pediatrician-approved super-powered chewable vitamin. While most children's vitamins are filled with 5 grams of sugar and can contribute to a variety of health issues, Haya is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. Yet it tastes great and is perfect for picky eaters. Haya fills in most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment our kids need with a yummy taste they love. It's formulated with the help of nutritional experts. Haya is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and vegetables, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more. Better yet, it's non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else you can imagine. Haya is designed for kids 2 and up and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. I love it when Haya arrives on my doorstep because my kids are the first ones to rip open the package. They absolutely love reminding me they have to take their Haya that day. They love the taste. It is not a fight at all to make sure they get all of their essential vitamins. I also recommend checking out their new kids probiotic and nighttime essentials. We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/prosecute. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to hayahealth.com/prosecute and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. I know we talk about how busy we are all the time with full-time lawyering jobs, full-time podcasting, and chasing lots of little kids around. I feel like I'm always tired, and sometimes it's hard to shut my brain off and get some quality sleep, which affects the rest of my day. It makes it hard to think on my feet during the day, makes it hard to talk during the podcast, and I'm short on energy with my kids. That's not what I want. So this is the thing about sleep. It's the foundation of whole body health. When we sleep well, our minds and our bodies perform at their best. Good sleep is both mental and physical, and our daily performance depends on it. What else? Proper sleep can also increase focus, boost energy, and improve your mood. That's why I'm so excited to talk about Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep. This product has single-handedly changed the way I sleep for the better. It tastes great and it's science-backed with natural ingredients. This bedtime essential is so decadent and totally guilt-free and available in delicious flavors like sea salt caramel, brownie batter, vanilla chai, and the Beam Dream Powder original flavor, cinnamon cocoa. Each serving's only 15 calories, 0 grams of sugar. And we can say this with confidence. Better sleep has never tasted better. Dream is tested for high-quality efficacy and formulated to ease your body into rest, supporting all 4 stages of the sleep cycle to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. Beam Dream is easy to add to your nighttime routine. Just mix Dream into hot water or milk froth and enjoy before bed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/prosecutors and use code prosecutors at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/prosecutors and use code prosecutors for up to 40% off.
Have you ever wanted to travel to the past and follow the trails of crooks, killers, and outlaws from yesteryear? All from the safety of a time machine? Well, on the Vintage Villains podcast, I examine the people, the cases, and the zeitgeist of the year in question so we can learn what made folks tick back then and better understand that which plagues us in the overwhelming present. Subscribe to Vintage Villains now on your favorite music or podcatcher apps, and I'll be seeing you soon in another century.
I'd love to hear gossip.
Should we hear a little bit of gossip? It's a little bit of
Taylor
gossip.
and Travis getting married.
I don't even think that would be gossip. It would just be like, about time, y'all. No, but let's see. Whoever wants to drop off, go ahead and drop off if you don't want to hear gossip. Because if you've made it through Brett's scariest places, you deserve a little bit of gossip. And a little bit of gossip is that I think I've been punked. I think I've been totally punked because you guys know how I feel about Halloween. And this gossip is only for the 80% of you who still listen. So congratulations. The other 20% might hear later on, but like whatever. It'll be literally old news by then. So you want to know what's really funny about me being terrified of Halloween?
What is funny about you being terrified of Halloween?
See, Brett's actually really scared. He has to laugh about all these places because if he doesn't, he'll start crying. So it's okay, Brett. I see you. So, some people joined because they want to hear the tea. So the funniest part about all this is the surprise for Halloween is I might end up having a Halloween baby. And I really hope not, because that would not be a fun day. But surprise, everybody.
I am pulling for the Halloween baby, of course, but
I'm not.
Congratulations, Alice. You know, the thing about
I was
Alice
a little
is,
bored in 2024. Thought, why not? There's nothing else going on in this world. Might as well sleep less.
So the thing about Alice is she has to have as many children as podcasts. So she had 2 podcasts and 3 kids, so she had to add a podcast. But then A&E was like, but we want you to do 2 podcasts. So then she had 4 podcasts, but only 3 kids, and so she had to have another child.
So this is really y'all's fault. Please, no more podcasts, no more kids. And also, another way to put this is that you guys keep asking us to do these deep dives. Do you know how much time it takes to do these deep dives? I have to put my other job on hold. Now, some of you may say just quit the other job, but I have like overcommitment issues. I can't uncommit to things I'm committed to. So the only way to be able to do another deep dive, and you guys can decide what that deep dive case will be, is to take another maternity leave. So this next baby is going to have a much more horrific deep dive than Brittany, which was Adnan. So we'll see. Or she ended on Murdaugh, which is pretty gruesome. And then, if you remember the early days of Adnan, it was baby Brittany. So those 62 of you here, you can come up with a name. I will tell you the name that I've been calling it because I think it's hilarious. But it doesn't have to be this. We can, do a poll only among you guys because it's a secret for you guys. Everyone else will find out in October. It's a boy. So I was thinking Alice's son, which I think is hilarious. Guys always name boys after themselves.
I love it. Not quite as good as Brittany, but Alice's son.
I hope you guys I hope you guys know how special you are because there are real people in my life who have forgotten to tell to this day. They'll be like,
they'll listen to the podcast.
Ate a watermelon. And I'm like, oh, did I not tell you? I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Anyways, that's all.
Hope you guys...
We can also answer real questions, too, because that's not exciting to most people. Questions.
Hope you guys have about 15, 16 weeks worth of time early next year. Because with Alice, we get very liberal maternity leave here, but while Alice...
It's not true at all.
Alice will be taking care of Alice's son. That will give me an opportunity to do some things that I've been meaning to do.
Oh, no. You guys are going to get so many Creepy Places podcasts.
Yeah. And I will say this. This will not affect, I know what you're all thinking. How does this affect me? Well...
What does this have to do with me? Nothing. Don't worry.
There's a reason that we've been recording Halloween episodes in August. We've gotten way ahead. We may have some guest hosts, so we'll be good.
And you know that Brett was not going to let us skip a Halloween episode, so don't you worry. No. That's why we've been doing Summer of Halloween.
Now, some of the legal briefs may just be me singing the Kilo song. So
which I would pay good money for.
But all right, so we're going to answer some questions. For those of you who don't know, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple, or if you leave one somewhere else and email it to us, which several of you have done, we will answer it for you live on the show. And we've got a whole bunch, and so let's answer a question. Okay, this is from JLL2080. And JLL2080 wants to know, what is one case where someone was convicted that you think is innocent, and one case where you think they should have been convicted but were found not guilty? I'm trying to do this without saying something we've said before.
I know.
I mean, look, we talked about way back, we did the Temujin Kinsu case, and some of y'all may have never even heard that episode because you're new and you haven't gone that far back. I think of all the people we've looked at, he's the one I'm most convinced is innocent, which, by the way, the Consult is doing the Temujin Kinsu case. Now they've done, as we're recording this, by the time you've heard it, it'll be done, but they've done 2 episodes so far. They're doing a 3rd episode. So listen to that if you want more of a deep dive on that. It's hard to say other than the ones we've covered.
Temujin Kinsu is a very good example, but I think we've also covered a lot of cases, and these are kind of really frustrating cases for me where we know who it is, but there's not enough evidence for the police to charge or to convict. So like we recently did one, the Thompson family, for example. We know who did it, but that person like ended their life so that there's no justice in the court system. I think there's justice maybe in the afterlife, but we've talked about Chiron. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting developments, and it's cases like those that actually really frustrate me because I think the police are like right on the cusp. If I were that prosecutor, I can imagine how I'm just like, I know who it is, but we just don't have the evidence, which is good. That's the purpose of the justice system, to be, in the place of mob rule and mob justice, to make sure we have standards in place. But when we come across a case like Temujin Kinsu, obviously it makes my blood boil because I can list many more cases where people have gotten off. And that's what our system is built for, is we'd rather more people get off than innocently convicted here. But Temujin Kinsu, if you haven't heard that, you need to go listen to it because there's justice can still come for him, but every day he's sitting in prison is an injustice.
Yeah, and it just strikes me as an obvious one. Like I don't, and it kills me. And in fairness, we talk about the Adnans and the Averys and Scott Petersons and all that, and how we wish people like Temujin would get more attention. In all fairness, Undisclosed, who was very much on the Adnan train, did a season in Temujin Kinsu, and Maggie Freeling is actually the person who introduced us to Temujin Kinsu. So it's not like there hasn't been some attention to it. I don't understand why that attention has not generated more forward movement. And I think one of the problems in his case, so many of these exonerations are based on DNA. And it's like, if it's not DNA, people don't want to touch it. And that's why you saw in the Adnan case, for instance, the grasping at straws to get like a DNA claim. It's almost like you need a DNA claim to get yourself an exoneration. And I don't know, but I keep being hopeful that one day something will come of that case. And like I said, listen to the consult and act accordingly. Okay, one more question. And this is a more fun question, I think, than that, because it's always depressing. Oh, like somebody was convicted who should have been convicted. I mean, Casey Anthony's an easy one, right? O.J. Simpson, I don't know. I mean, Karen Reed hadn't been convicted yet, so. Okay, this is from Savannah Dunn. Savannah Dunn says, I know both of you went to tough schools. Not true. You think that.
Tough to get in.
Tough to
get in. But not tough.
Right.
Once you're in.
Yeah. Total propaganda. Harvard and Yale. Did you ever have classmates that you found to lack basic intelligence, or maybe that were school smart, but just not smart with everyday things?
99% of them. I'm sorry. Look, I put myself in that 99%. It's okay. But yes, 100%. Guys, we've talked about this before. The Ivy League system, the hierarchy of where schools are placed and how they're ranked, is a racket. It is a literal racket. It costs so much money. And I say this for people who may be thinking, oh, it's worth to take out $500,000 to go to these schools, when maybe another very, very good school is going to give you a full ride to get a fantastic education. You're not paying for the education. You're paying for acts. I'm going to say things that the alumni office don't want you to hear, but everyone should know. You're paying for the name of the school, and you're paying for access to your peers who will go far because they have the name and because they probably came from places and positions of power and privilege. So they are already going to be catapulted into positions of power. And it's going to be great when you can be like, yeah, I sat next to him in contracts or torts. And when he's thinking about who to refer some case to, he'll know your name over Joe Schmo who didn't go to his school. With all that said, I obviously recognize that I got all the benefits of doing that. But I think it is a disservice for the many people who think that because you went to a certain school, you're better than anybody, that you're smarter than anybody. Sometimes it's being struck by lightning. That was for me because I didn't know anybody. I didn't have the money to go there. I don't think Brett had either of those things either. So in that, we are very similar. And that's probably why we're the only people of all of our classmates to have podcasts. Because I don't think you want to hear them talk. You might. I have some fantastic friends, but I think that is so important to know, because if I do nothing else in life, it's to demystify the like faux hierarchies that exist in the society. People who think that some people's voices are more worthy than others. No, at all. Turn us off. Go listen to your self-talk. I think that's great. But yeah, there's nothing. Don't turn us off. There's nothing special except that I would say a lot of us got struck by lightning who got to go to these schools. And it doesn't make us better or smarter than the majority of people who went to probably the top 50 schools. That's how big the spread is, right? It's not like, oh, all of us who went to the top 5 schools are the same. It's a pretty big swath where you're going to find like the valedictorian at the 50th school is probably going to be way better than the median at some of the top 10 schools.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. I mean, I did well on the LSAT and I did well in college, but the reason I got into Harvard is because Harvard wanted to be able to say that they had somebody from every state. Like, if I had been from a different state, I would not have gotten into Harvard. It was just a pure, and that's, I mean, honestly, of the people who go to these schools, they're all intelligent people. And I met some people who were just brilliant, who were truly some of the smartest people I've ever met. Now, not all of them had the sort of ability to function in society, which I think is the question. But they were brilliant people, but it's just almost, it's like being struck by lightning, as Alice said. And I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again because I think it just absolutely encapsulates all this. First day at Harvard, going to the assembly, and in all the movies, you sort of hear the stories about the dean comes in and says, look to your left and look to your right. One of you won't graduate, right? Like that was sort of the old saw about law schools. It's so hard and you're going to just kill yourself. And a third of you are going to fail out. And that's fine because that's the way we want it to be, right? So you go in and Dean Kagan, who's now a Supreme Court justice, she goes up there and the first thing she says is, I know some of you are nervous. You're afraid it's going to be a competition. I'm here to tell you the competition is over. You have already won. That's your first day at Harvard. You've already won. It's over. You're going to be here for 3 years. It doesn't matter because you're going to graduate at the end and you're going to have a Harvard degree. And that's all that matters. And as Alice said, the most important thing, and it is absolutely true, it's the people, you just know all these people and who are going to be in important positions, who want to facilitate this whole Harvard thing, right? And so they continue just to press it forward. And all of them know, as we know, that the people who went to Harvard are not special. But it continues anyway. And as Alice said, if there's one thing, I don't know how to do it, but that mindset, I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to stop that from happening. It's obviously been that way for hundreds of years. So I don't know what to do about it, but that's why I take issue with your question. And this is not a criticism of you, but just the notion that, oh, well, you went to Harvard and Yale. Those are really hard schools. So you must be great lawyers. So therefore you should move ahead in the line of these other people. When in fact, if I had gone to the University of Alabama Law School, I would have gotten a better legal education. I would be a better lawyer. But because I went to Harvard, I have a Harvard degree. And that automatically just It's huge
That
stores, right?
Wouldn't have been otherwise, right? So no, this is it's a very nuanced response we're giving. We're not poo-pooing on the schools or the alumni. Some of my best friends are classmates that I met from law school. It's not that. We're trying to defeat the notion that there's something special about us or our classmates. That's what we're trying to defeat. So we're not poo-pooing on the school. Because look, I am so lucky that like I could move to a new state that I had no ties to and get a fantastic job. That's one of the benefits of having the degree that I do. Even if I was the exact same person with the exact same skill set, but I had a school that you maybe had never heard of. And so there's just they have no idea of how to think about me. But instead, when I put in my resume and they're like, why would you want to move here? You have no experience doing this. Okay, but you went to Yale. We're going to give you an interview. And then obviously I have to succeed once I get in the door. But it definitely opens doors. That's what we're trying to say. So we're not trying to poo-poo on the people who went there, but rather trying to demystify the process, which is that there's nothing special about anyone who went. There are brilliant people who went there, but there are also brilliant people who went to the University of Alabama, University of Texas, and much lower ranked schools because they could go for free, because they had family in the area. They had people they needed to take care of that they moved back home in order to take care of. We've met lots of those types of people. And you can be a fantastic lawyer and you can make differences in your world having not gone to those schools, which is great for all of us, right? Opens up the pool of people who can change the world for the better.
Yeah. And like, look, when we started this podcast, did we think the fact that one of us went to Harvard and one of us went to Yale might be a nice selling point? Sure.
It's the only reason I'm friends with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know why I'd be friends with a Yale person, but anyways.
I was going to say, so that I could tell you how you only went to Harvard.
Yeah, there you go. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most of you who listen to this podcast do not listen to this podcast because we went to Harvard and Yale. If that was all we had, by this point, you'd have turned it off. You listen because of all the other stuff, not because of that fact. But it's hard. It's oversized in its importance. So all that to say, if like Alice said, if your choice is you can go to a nice in-state school and not have a ton of debt, or you can go have a ton of debt at Harvard or Yale, go to the in-state school. You'll be much better off.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, love the questions. If you have any thoughts about the scary places we talked about today, or if you have other scary places, or if you just want to wish Alice congratulations, shoot us an email, prosecutorspod@gmail.com, @prosecutorspod for all your social media. We're on all of them. So find us anywhere. Go to the gallery, which is sort of our main fan-run page. Lots of great discussion about all sorts of things, including current cases. Or you can join Patreon, and for as little as $3 a month, you can take part in these wonderful lives where you get to learn gossip about Alice, like that she's having Alice son. So I'm going to have to get used to saying that, Alice son.
If you're part of the patrons, you get to come up with the name, because by the time the rest of the public knows, I think the name will be decided upon. And you could take a poll to see if this is a Halloween baby, and I'm going to have to have Halloween forever around my house.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out. It's going to be amazing. All right, Alice, was there anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, this is, I guess, been fun, Brett. I'm thoroughly freaked out by these places, but it's always a joy to talk to you and talk to all of you who are watching live.
All right, guys. Well, we will be back next week. And you know what next week is? Halloween. It's hard to believe, Alice. Our last Halloween episode. Got a good one for you. And as I said, this was our spooky episode for the month. I mean, the next one, there's spooky things about it, but it is real true crime. Absolutely a true crime case, a mystery, and I can't wait. An awesome mystery. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I can't wait to dive into it with you guys. But until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the prosecutors. Okay.
So y'all are lucky because Brett strong-armed me into telling you guys today. I wanted to just surprise you guys with like a new baby.
As I said, this is a surprise. I don't really understand.
I know, but wouldn't it be funny to just like post a picture of a baby and be like, "It's not Brittany."
I guess. Well, you can still do that. I mean, you know, the people on Twitter will have no idea. We can just post pictures.
They'll be like,
I did not strong arm you. I said you could wait.
No, you did not
until
strong
Halloween
arm me.
if
It
you
was the
wanted.
perfect time. Because
That's true. This was a more fun episode. So I assume we don't have any ads yet, right?
Nope, I don't see any. Except for Babbel. Except they're not really. I don't think they've even bought an ad with us for a long time, but they should.
Yeah, they can come back. Yeah.
I love reality TV on Pluto TV.
Same, and I love that it's free.
It gives me the freedom to watch Bravo's Real Housewives Vault channel.
I'm totally free to watch Bad Girls Club.
I'm free for Jersey Shore.
Love and Hip Hop, I'm free all day.
Survivor, I'm free all night.
With hundreds of free reality shows, you are totally free to watch what you love on Pluto TV.
Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.